Yes, sir. Ankita madam, are you there?
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am. So
Yes,
good,
ma'am.
Yeah.
ma'am. Just give me a few minutes.
Yes, please.
Good evening to the esteemed members of Team Research Foundation of India, our distinguished session expert, Dr. Ankita Jain, ma'am, and dear participants. It is my great pleasure to warmly welcome each of you with a special welcome to Dr. Ankita, ma'am, to the final day of the Training and Faculty Development Program on a step-by-step guide to writing a good research paper. This exceptional initiative is proudly organized by the Research Foundation of India and RFI-CARE in collaboration with Shodh Malwa, IT University Punjab, and MKES Handwala College. We are also immensely grateful to JHERF, Academic Research Guide Association, and Edu Academic Inc. for their sponsorship. So, over the past few days, our session experts have covered a broad spectrum of insightful topics, including the art of writing literature reviews, data analysis using Excel and SPSS, compiling references and bibliographies, questionnaire design and sampling, hypothesis development and testing, understanding impact factor, and research design and sampling. So today we conclude with the final topic, conclusions and summary. Before we proceed, I would like to take a moment to introduce our schedule expert, Dr. Ankita Jain, ma'am, the maestro of our program and the coordinator of Foreign Affairs at the Research Foundation of India. Her academic journey is marked by numerous achievements. She began her career at the Sri Vaishnav Institute of Management and Research Indore as an assistant professor in the Department of Management. Prior to that, she contributed her expertise at the renowned institute, that is Prestige Institute of Management and Research Indore. With over 7 years of dedicated teaching experience, she holds a PhD from Prestige Institute of Management and Research DAVB Indore. Her teaching portfolio spans a wide array of subjects, including human resource management, entrepreneurship, organizational development, and leadership skills. Her thirst for knowledge extends beyond borders, as demonstrated by her completion of the annual 5-week faculty development program at the prestigious Indian Institute of Management Indore. Additionally, she had a patent publication to her credit, highlighting her innovative approach to addressing societal challenges through digital entrepreneurship. Beyond academia, she had made her mark as an expert speaker at numerous forums, contributed to scholarly publications, and actively participated in national and international conferences. She has also taken on roles in institutional committees, using her expertise to elevate various academic facets. Her dedication to holistic education is also reflected in her involvement in cultural events, where she fosters creativity and joy. Her passion for guiding young minds shines through her roles as a motivational speaker, career guide, and life coach, inspiring countless students towards success. So, without further delay, I now invite Dr. Ankita ma'am to begin her presentation.
Thank you so much, Neha ma'am, and thank you so much everyone for cooperating and understanding the timed issue. So thank you so much. Once again, I would like to say thanks to Research Foundation of India for giving me this opportunity in this particular workshops. So there are already so many sessions has been done, and you must have gone through various sessions which were there in the journey of this particular workshop. So I would like to take you to the last session of this workshop, which is on conclusion and summary. So in this workshop, you have talked about various topics, like it is basically about step by step research for step by step way of writing a research paper. How can you write a very good research paper? It is all about that. So basically, in this workshop, you have talked about how to write a good research paper and a report. understanding impact factor. You have we have already talked about art of writing literature review, questionnaire designing. You have also seen some analysis related work on Excel and SPSS, and then hypothesis development, research designing, sampling, and also compiling the references. Apart from that, there was one more topic that is very much important: ethical issues and plagiarism related, which also held by the team. So now, today in the 10th day of this workshop, we are going to talk about conclusion and summary. So let's start. Let me share my slides with you all. Just a minute. So just a minute. My slides are visible to everyone.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. So in this training and development program, FDP on a step-by-step guide to write a good research paper, we are on the last day, that is conclusion and summary. So I am going to present this. So in the whole FDP, we have talked about various topics which were important. So as I should tell you, I should start with the first part, because ultimately I'm going for the last one. So the foremost we have to do is, that is writing the abstract. That is to be written in the last, but that's the first thing which we see whenever we go through any kind of research paper. Then the introduction, review of literature, research methodology, results, we also call it data analysis and interpretation, then findings and discussion, conclusion, and references. So basically, whenever we are writing the introduction and review of literature, the references are supposed to be come along with these two chapters. Mostly the part of first two chapters is containing the in-text citations, which we have to write in the part of references. Then also, whenever we are writing discussion, apart from findings, in which we are discussing our work, what we have done with the previous work is done by other people, that can be equally contributing or matching with our results, or maybe opposing to our result, or maybe similar, or may not be similar to our result. But yes, some references or in-text citations comes when we write the discussion. So ultimately, these three chapters mainly are the part which are including the references. And results comes whenever we are preparing any empirical paper where we are doing some analysis work. So data analysis and interpretations comes in this particular chapter. So now I'm going to talk about the last one, that is conclusion. So the conclusion is intended. I hope my slides are clearly visible to everyone. Somebody can
Yes,
please give
ma'am.
me
Yes,
confirmation.
yes.
Yeah. So the conclusion is intended to help the reader or researcher to understand why your research should matter to them after they have finished reading the paper. So ultimately, the conclusion and the summary is a part of your paper where you can see that the gist of the paper, what you have done and what you have concluded, what were your objective and how those objectives were satisfied by the your work, what you have done, right? So then conclusion is not merely a summary of your points or restatement of your research problem, but a synthesis of your key points. So ultimately, this is going to give you a view about basically what work has been done. So it is basically the gist of your work. Then conclusion is the final paragraph of a research paper that comes in the last, obviously. So final paragraph of a research paper, conclusion should never be so lengthy, because ultimately conclusion is going to tell you in short what you have done in the whole paper. So it should not be very lengthy. And it serves to help the reader or researcher to understand why the research should matter. So ultimately, there should be a small paragraph of it. Then now, so restate the problem statement, summarize your research paper, then discuss the implications, and finally you should write the conclusion. So if you have read in the chapter 2, that is basically the review of literature session, you must have heard or talked about the problem statement, research statement, research questions, or something like that. So after doing that, you have to summarize your paper. Then also there is one word is there, implication. Apart from this, there are so many things like limitations should be there, recommendations should be there, everything should be there when we are writing the conclusion. So after conclusion, we can restate it. So let's talk about conclusion, do's and don'ts. I'm assuming that in this particular FDP, you already have understood about different parts of research paper, and assuming that I'm just doing this. So again, it is not going to be a very lengthy, but yes, I'm just telling you the key points of it, right? So do's, make it concise and straightforward. As I have told you, a single para or two paras are enough when we are writing a research paper's conclusion. It should not be very much lengthy. Try to write uh, your conclusion objective wise. Okay, then restate your research topic, the central point of that particular study. Then highlight the major outcomes. Just talk about what were the, like, whenever we write the findings, so you write major findings like this. In the conclusion, highlight the major outcomes what were there. Then summarize the main points. Again, just write whatever is important, whatever happened very importantly. Then make a connection between opening and closing statements, right? So basically, the conclusion should not be very separate from your work. So whatever you have said or told in the last in the beginning, that should come in the closing statement as well. Means your paper's title should match your conclusion. If it is matching your introduction, it should also match your conclusion. Whatever you have said in your objective, that should be matched in your conclusion. Provide a brief overview of your paper and address whether or not it answers your research question. So basically, it should give a whole idea about your paper. It should be a brief overview where you can see what you have done in your paper. And also, yeah, it should answer a research question. I mean, as I have told you, objectives, generally you should try to write your objective conclusion objective wise. Then do's, there are some more. You should use some broad statements, right? Then in abstract, we should be very concise and specific. In you can write broad statements. Then language should be simple. Then you should state the significance and importance or just the results of it. Write important insights of the research. What are the important highlights you should mention in this? Like in the newspaper, or you can see in the news reporting, whenever we see that, we just write the highlights, we give the highlights, right? So that's the major attraction of your study. Then summarize the key points and purpose of the research. Also, as I've told you, purpose or objectives of the research must be summarized in keywords or some points. With the some points, you can also use bullets, but just paragraph should be one or two, not more than that. Now, let's talk about don'ts. So do not include completely new information in your conclusion. As I told you, your opening and closing statement should match. Everything should be matched. So try to include just what was there in your study, what was related to your study. Just don't try to put something new because you want to make it highlighted. Don't do this. Then do not introduce new data or interpretation. Again, just don't put any information here and there. Just add whatever is required and related to your paper. Avoid repetition, avoid overgeneralizing and exaggerating. Just write very proper what is required and what is related to it. No to methods, no to discussion and results. Instead, mention the references, just insights and implications. As already there is one chapter which is talking about findings and discussion. So just write basic the highlights, the insights, and write the implications as well. Avoid phrases as in summary or in conclusions. right? We should not write, because we are writing the conclusion, we are writing the summary. So you should not use such kind of phrases, or like, we can see, you know it, we know it. You should not use such kind of words. In this study, in this research paper, or this study talks about, you can write something like this. Then avoid overuse complex jargon or technical terms. Sometimes, just to show our language thing or something, like, you always try to use some words which are not that much required, and you are just using for the sake of showing. Don't just simply repeat the introduction again. In an introduction, we are just talking about the title, and we are some also giving the introduction of it. So don't do it in the conclusion. Just be stick to the study what you have done. Just conclude that. Then unclear connection with the introduction. It should not, as I have told you, in the opening and closing statement should be matched. So it should not be having an unclear connection, right? Your introduction and conclusion should be matched. In terms of what you were talking about in introduction, you should give conclusion to that only, right? Okay. Now, what you should mention when you are writing the conclusion. Okay. Number 1, brief overview and significance of the study, right? Just a simple some words, or some sentences. Mention importance of the study. Give suggestions and recommendations, as I've already told you about it. Scope for the future research, or future research scope, all comes with the same thing. Do mention the limitations of your study. Also discuss the implications, and conclude your thoughts, or concluding statement should be there. All these things should be mentioned in this particular conclusion. So ultimately, whenever you are talking about what is conclusion, so all these things, highlighted things which I have mentioned in yellow, should be part of the conclusion, as much as you can uh, give the clarification of all this. Now, some people, almost in every workshop, people talks about how many pages I should use, how many paragraphs I should use, so that the right size of the thing. So see, it all depends on your study, because ultimately it's your study. You should decide how much you should write, how much is required. Don't use over the limit, and don't use so much in a small paragraph that no clear understanding of the work is done. In that case, while there is no hard and fast rule of the length, conclusion are typically one paragraph long. That is more than enough. However, you may find some that there are 2 or 3 paragraphs long, but that is more than enough, not more than that. Now, there is one more thing. If we talk about the pages or sentences or something like that, so obviously it should not be come in the pages. The conclusion of the length varies. So it should be concise. So aim should be around 5 to 7 sentences, or the very right thing is written here,
Ankita ma'am,
that is 10% of the total paper. I think I can hear some voices here.
Ankita ma'am, sorry to
Please turn
interrupt
off the
you.
mic.
Please,
Sorry.
sir, please mute yourself.
Yeah. So, as I have written here, that 5 to 7 sentences, or roughly 10% of the total paper length. I'm just talking about research paper, right? Or there should be one paragraph, not more than 3 paragraphs. So that is the length of the conclusion should be there. So some broader paragraphs or statements should be there, which are enough for the conclusion, right? So how to write conclusion? So let's see. The first thing which you should do, read statement, problem statement. Then discuss the main findings critically. Findings you have written, then you can discuss the main findings. Then you should write implications, practices, policy or theory, if you want to say something about it. Any limitations, what has been learned. Then you should always give a future research scope which you could not do in your study. So I must say that you should wrap up your ideas. You should summarize the thoughts, your last thoughts, whatever it was about your paper. Answer the question, so what? Now, what has been done? You should write here. And finally, the significance of the study should be mentioned in the conclusion. Just a minute, everyone. Excuse me.
Sule Kumar sir, please mute yourself.
Okay, I am back to the thing. The purpose of the conclusion. So ultimately, why to write the conclusion? So there are some points to be discussed. Number one, summarize the key points. Number one, summarize the key points. It is talking about recap the main findings. As I have told you, obviously there are chapters already written about the findings, methodology, conclusion, everything. We are writing it separately. But in conclusion, we should summarize the key points, which were the main aspect or essential aspects of your research. Then reinforce the significance. As I am mentioning it from the first slide, it is all about why this study has been done, the importance, the significance of this study. Then call to action or future directions. In every study, this is one more aspect which should be mentioned, because in your study you cannot do everything. So there is always a scope. There is always something which is left. So you can write it as the future research scope or the call for the future directions. Then leave a lasting impression. It means always try to write something which everybody can read and understand what your study has been, why it has been taken place. And they should also, come up with some of the takeaways should be there. Basically, the people should have some impact in their mind whenever they are studying this particular conclusion. So exactly what to do? Answer or restate the research questions first. Number two, summarize and reflect on the research, the key findings. How will the result match your expectation? Ultimately, conclusion should also focus on this thing. What was your expectation and what were your results? So ultimately, are your results matching your expectations? Then why you took that approach? Whatever approach you have taken, so why you have taken, you can also mention in a line or something. Then again, as I have told you, you should always mention recommendation, suggestions,
Ankita
and
ma'am,
based on
please,
the
can you,
conclusion.
sorry to disturb you, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, tell me.
Sulek sir, can you please mute your mic? Actually, I'm not understanding all the things. Sulek sir, hello. Uh, Thank you, ma'am.
Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am.
So again, after this, suggestion and recommendations should be there. There is one more thing is written that again I should say based on conclusion, means your recommendations, suggestions, implication, scope, anything whatever you are writing, it should not be generalized, because you are having in your mind that it should be like this. It is not like that. It should ultimately based on conclusion. Sometimes I have met number of people what they were expecting, that it should be there in your like they have something in their mind when they are carrying any study, but when the results are not coming as expected, so they think that what should I do, have I done something wrong? So don't do this. just think whatever you have done was right, and then accept your results how as it is. Don't manipulate the results. Ultimately, your study is saying that. Then emphasize your contributions. Whatever you're contributing to the researchers or some people or anything, whatever is that, you should emphasize. And finally, in a line or two or in a single paragraph, small paragraph, you should wrap up the work. So now the last 10 tips which I have for you all. Number one, provide a concise recap of your main research outcome. Then you have to give your reminder to the to your objectives and its accomplishments. Then stick to summarizing and refrain from the new details. As I've told you, don't add new details because you want to add 5 stars in your study. Don't do this. Emphasize why research matters, so broader implications should be there. Then clearly explain the practical or theoretical impact of your findings, right? Briefly discuss about your research methods, suggestions, future research scope, and also transparently address the constraint, whatever the biases, whatever the limitations were there, and end with a powerful note. Leave a memorable impression of your study. Be concise to the work, but be specific, and it should cover whatever you have done in your study. So that's it from my side. Because because this was a last thing, and because you have already studied about topics, so this much I think information is required and was required about this study. If any of you want to discuss some part of this, we can do that, or you have any doubt, you can let me know. Any questions or any point which you think that what should conclusion have or conclusion should con- uh, come up with, you can ask me for that.
Good evening, ma'am.
I hope my session has given you the all information about the conclusion. Still, if you have any doubt, you can ask me.
Ma'am, could you kindly summarize the key points? What should be mentioned in the conclusion? Because there was a lot of disturbance in the middle. Only the key point.
One thing. Yeah, I'll just tell you again. You want to listen, or you just want to see the slide?
Even if you show the slide, not a problem, ma'am.
See, for the disturbance, you can also listen the session to the YouTube, but I'm just sharing my slides again as you have asked me. See, just a minute. You are talking about this
Conclusion part, yeah.
So yeah, ultimately, as I was discussing the same thing all over the slides, there was nothing new, but just I have written the the keywords like what should be there. So it should be a concise recap whatever you have done in outcomes. You have to summarize the content. You should write something so that people can connect whatever your objectives and what you have concluded about. Then it should be transparently, you should address the constraint, biases, and limitations. Then ultimately, you should give a powerful note where you can say that what your study is putting impact on in the research area, what researchers can gain out of your study. Then whatever the practical and theoretical impact of your findings, how it is contributing, everything you should write here.
Okay, ma'am.
Is this okay?
Yeah, ma'am.
Anybody else is having any questions?
Yes, ma'am, I have one doubt.
I cannot hear your voice.
Hello, ma'am, can you hear my voice now?
I can hear, but it's very slow.
Hello, now, ma'am?
Yeah, please tell me. I will try to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the 10th point which you have shown in your last slide, it shows
Yes.
that end with the powerful note, leaving a memorable impression on your readers.
Yes.
Can you state few examples so that we can refer to our conclusions? Just few examples, like sentences.
I am not giving. I cannot give you the example of conclusions, but I can tell you how you can give. Basically, if your study like for example, any speaker is talking about something, right? He is giving expert lecture in that. Ultimately, he gives a end statement, right? It is like that. Ultimately, if somebody is putting a shairi in the end to give a whole or summarizing a lecture in that particular shairi or in a particular note, like that, whenever you're writing a research paper, in the conclusion, you should give a statement which can give a long lasting impression of it, that what you have done in a study, how that is ultimately, as I have told you, contribution of your work you can mention.
Okay.
For the examples, you should read some conclusion. You can, any of the research theses which are published or any research papers which are published, you can read their conclusion, so that you can understand how they are writing. You can see the Scopus journals where they have published different papers, so how they have mentioned or have written their conclusions, so you can understand how you should use such things.
Okay, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any other question?
No, ma'am.
If anybody is having any question, Research Foundation of India, you can directly contact, and you can send them mail or something like that. They can reach out to you, and you can put the you can send your inquiry there also. Or still, if you want to ask here, I'm here. Any question?
Madam,
Neha ma'am?
excuse me. Madam, excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, tell me.
As you said, only 10% of the total article conclusion is enough, ma'am. Is this enough, ma'am?
Is
Okay, madam.
what is your
Thank you.
question?
Madam, my question is, as you said, conclusion should be 10% of the total research paper. Is this enough, ma'am?
See, as I have told you in advance, before giving this, showing the slide, that people
ma'am.
do ask about it. So this can be followed, but yes, depending upon study to study, you can customize it. I have not said that it should be fixed. I have said 5-7 statement, but maybe your study may be asking for 4 paragraph, 5 paragraph, but 3 paragraphs are enough. It may be 10%, it may be 11 or 12 or 15 or 17. Depends on your study. It is not fixed. Obviously, it is your study, so you have to decide the length. But yeah, that
Yes.
can be a tentative one where you are thinking that how much I should write. So that is a rough idea I have given.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Any other queries?
Yes.
So shall we conclude?
Any other question? Neha ma'am, I think there is no question. If
Okay.
somebody is asking any question, you can forward it to me.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, we will reply there on the mail or WhatsApp group, wherever they want.
Okay, so as we come to the close of this commendable and remarkable 10 days training and faculty development program on a step-by-step guide to writing a good research paper, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all our enthusiastic participants. My sincere thanks goes to our distinguished session experts, Dr. Soni sir, Dr. Agrawal sir, Dr. Chhabra sir, Dr. Chanchala Jain ma'am, Dr. Priyanka ma'am, and today's expert, Dr. Ankita Jain ma'am, for their invaluable time and the wealth of knowledge they have shared with us. I also extend my heartfelt appreciation to the organizing committee and sponsors whose unwavering support has been instrumental to the success of these programs. With profound appreciation for everyone's dedication and involvement, we officially conclude this FDP. We look forward to welcome you all again in future sessions where we will explore even more intellectually stimulating topics. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Neha ma'am, all the participants and Research Foundation of India and the organizers, sponsors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.